Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Let me first wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving as you're chawing down on that turkey or whatever you choose to be able to enjoy during this holiday. Hope you and your family are having a wonderful holiday, and please stay safe. But we will, as we always do, cover all the home teams today. The New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans, LSU, and Tulane. We got you covered with one of the best in the business. My good friend, you hear him on the radio each and every day from noon to 3 on 100.3 FM, the home of the New Orleans Pelicans. Gus Kattengell joins us on the show today. Gus, how are you, bud?
Doing
Happy
fantastic.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
to you
Thanksgiving
and your family.
to you as well, man.
Always good to have you. And it's kind of tough now because, before we were on at the same time, but this show came on live at 6 on a Thursday. So you were always in my rotation, like every 6 weeks bringing you on.
Right.
But now the show, it comes on live at 1 on Thursdays, and you're in the middle of your show.
Right.
So when we got a chance to be able to record for the holidays, you were my first choice.
Awesome.
I'm glad you were able to make it.
I appreciate it. Well, I almost feel like we need like a little turkey or something in there.
Wouldn't it be nice?
I'm looking forward to it. Well, what is your number one traditional kind of thing? My dad does a gumbo,
right?
And I look forward to it, like a big old, like days and months type amount of gumbo to go with the.
I love to smoke
ham.
a turkey.
Okay,
and I started doing that when my kids were young. And you just put it on the smoker, you leave it overnight, and again, so that's what I love. And then I've also come to love the fried turkey. Now, I will not fry a turkey, but there are a lot of nonprofits out there that fry turkeys.
Okay.
For instance, again, the Dawn Busters out in Metairie, they fry, they set a record for frying turkeys. So every year we get a fried turkey from them. Actually, I'll be honest with you, we get 2.
Okay.
We freeze one for Christmas. But my mom made the most delicious oyster dressing.
Nice.
Okay? And it's still a recipe throughout my family. So, again, my wife has tried, and she doesn't want to keep going because she thinks she can't match my mom. She does a great job with it. But my cousins, they'll make it, and they'll always save me a little something. But that is my all-time favorite, the oyster dressing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I wanted to start out with, man, because with everything going on, and we got a recent spike, and I don't know what phase we're in. You tell me.
Modified modified phase 2
exactly.
right now, at least for the moment.
And I know, you're hearing don't get together and all that, but I think more than any time, you need your family now, man. I mean, you can go nuts if you don't just have the normal love and being with everyone else. So it is truly a time to give thanks, especially now because, people have lost lives, people have gotten sick, and more importantly, jobs and all that stuff. So I think this Thanksgiving is going to be a lot more special in this holiday season.
There's no doubt. Well, look, and again, I don't like to be telling things out of school, but your audience already knows it. You're a COVID-19 survivor. You went through it. How difficult was it for you?
It was. It's the fear factor at first, right? I mean, you sit there and you hear those words. You're positive. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens here. I may not look like it, but I do work out 5 out of 7 days. At least I try to eat healthy, and I think that did help. But Dad's diabetic, and my mom's in her upper 60s as well. So you're immediately nervous about that. My wife's parents are, up in age as well.
You got a little bit.
She's asthmatic, asthmatic. So, has asthma. So it's that fear thing. But going through it, I was lucky. I only had 2-3 days, essentially, where I felt a little down and out, and then I did lose taste and smell, which was really weird.
Yeah.
I called you and I told you, I'm like, I can't taste the scotch. I was like, but I got it back in 2 days, so we're good. So I think it was more fear, and then being able to pass on that knowledge there with everyone else, what it felt would work for me, what vitamins to take, and I think it's a fear thing, you know. So more than anything else.
It affects everyone differently.
Yeah.
If you have a pre-existing condition, obviously it has an opportunity to affect you much worse. And we just pray that again, as we get into 2021, the vaccines will be readily available. We will get them out, and we can get over this and get back to a sense of normalcy.
Yeah. Look, I know someone in our business that it was 2.5 weeks, and I know a coach that's still dealing with it. And he had it back in March and April, and he still hadn't.
See?
Yeah, so.
It affects everybody differently, no doubt. Before we get into it, tell us about the radio show. Plus, you're also still the voice of Tulane women's basketball.
Yeah, we're underway. Started on Wednesday, and then on Friday we got another game. So we'll see how many games you have in the schedule, because earlier in the week, UConn basketball had a pause. So I think it's going to be like what we've seen in college basketball, in college football, and in the NFL. You're going to have to adjust. And schedule came out last week, and we're looking at it, and we're going to be traveling. So, we'll see. But I can tell you this, we're getting tested all the time.
Right. You tell me that, right?
To even be on the court and be around the team, I got to be tested every other day and all that. So it's they're trying to be as safe as you can with it, and it's going to be interesting from this perspective in that we've been covering teams and hearing what they've had to go through.
Yes.
This is my first experience of being a part of a team and seeing how it goes through. So when we travel, do we go straight from the bus to the hotel, stay in your rooms? When we get to other arenas, what's the protocol when we get in there? So it's going to be interesting to see, because I can take that to the show and kind of get an idea what's that like. Stress level, how do coaches adapt and things of that nature. So what if you miss and lose your star player that day, and now they're gone for a week, 2 weeks, but you have 3 games in basketball. In football, you might lose 2 games or something, right? We spoke with, we had Coach Billy Napier on Tuesday. He had it. He has to wait to drive, to see his team, because he can't be around them Saturday's game for ULM. But what if in college basketball, you might have 3 games a week? So you might miss a player for 3 games. Right. So.
Well, and look, football's been a little bit different. Yeah. Okay. In the college game, we're seeing games being postponed. In some cases, they're not playing the games. In the NFL, they've been able to push through it. In the NBA, we saw a bubble for the playoffs. Basketball is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out on both the collegiate level and the pro level, trying to play a season with all the travel that goes along with it. And as you mentioned, playing multiple games per week. It's a little bit different with football. You're in a bubble with basketball. There would be no bubbles, at least for this point. So how you can get a season in right now, and ultimately, hopefully, we will be able to see that. And look, the main thing is hopefully we get to a vaccine, and then again, this is all behind us. But there is going to be some interruptions.
Absolutely. I don't see how you're not. Again, they're trying to, I always say, deal with a virus. You can't control a virus. We haven't controlled the flu. We deal with the flu. We get vaccinated to make it less. And we have different things to help you deal when you get it. So we'll see.
Yep. Well, I would normally start with the Saints. Yeah. Okay, but we're going to start with the Pelicans tonight. Okay. Okay, because they have made some great moves over the last few days, and it's really been hard for people to be able to keep up with if you're really not entrenched in it like you and I are. So let's get to it. First of all, today, big news: the Pelicans signed Brandon Ingram to a max deal of 5 years, $158 million. That's a straight 5-year contract, from what we understand. There's no player clause option in there, or team option, which means again that Brandon Ingram wants to be here in New Orleans. I think this is a great signing for the organization. People have asked, why wasn't he signed first? Well, they had to do the housekeeping on the salary cap with the Jrue Holiday trade and get that completed before they could sign Brandon Ingram because of salary cap purposes. But now that it's done, he's got the max deal. Talk a bit about it.
Yeah, there's so many places you can go with it. So we'll just do, to me, the top 3 things that I take out of it. A, you have to love a story in a situation where a player bets on himself. And that's what he did. He could have signed last year. He passed on. It would have been 4 years, about 128, 115 million. He gets 158 with an extra year on that. But more importantly, it's proving that he wanted to be here, like you're saying. We've talked about this on this show before with other panelists, that you would have to be blind to not see how Brandon Ingram was happier here. And take anything, Eric, your relationship, your work environment. When you're in a happy place and you're in a better place and you feel the people you work for or the person you're with supports you, it's so much easier to do your job. And you could see him smiling, you could see him feeling comfortable, and then you just go by what David Griffin and everybody else told you about him, right? Even Coach, the coach is saying, this guy comes in and does 2-a-days. He works extra hard. He took himself from a nice player, right, with some potential, to an all-star player in one offseason. That's what he did. So that's one aspect of it. The other is he had some intangibles that you can't teach and coach. He wants to be a leader. Now, we kind of equate a lot of times to being a leader, being vocal and things of that nature. That's not Brandon, but he does it with this work ethic. He does it by working as well as he does, and more importantly, what he does on the court. He's a good teammate, and he's a guy that wants to shoot the ball at the end. You can't teach that for years, AD or other players, LeBron. It eventually get to that point, but that's somebody that he wants to be. And in a season where you thought it was going to be Zion and more Zion, when you start the year and it's not him, then you're finding and you're looking for somebody to try to be something to lead you. He became the team's leading scorer. He found a way when Zion did come in to coexist with him. He could still be the leading scorer. And look, let's be honest, right? He knows he's playing for a contract. He could have come in and be like, man, I need my touches. You never heard that. So it's just so many different aspects of it. And then I guess the cherry on top, it might be the official turning of the page, right? It's incredible. I'll speak with Andrew Lopez of ESPN, who covers the Pels, and he said, in a year and a half's time, there is no player now on this roster that was here before David Griffin in Adele Demp's era. They're gone. And you don't have Anthony Davis, you don't have Jrue Holiday. They were your 2 cornerstones for the most part. From that time. That's it. So your pillars right now are Zion and Brandon Ingram.
Well, to your point, and of course it's been made quite a few times over the last few days, the longest tenured Pelican right now is Zion Williamson, which is amazing to think. It's Zion Williamson, the longest tenured Pelican. But again, it goes to show you changing of the guard very quickly. The next thing we'll talk about is the Jrue Holiday trade. And we talked a little bit about it on the program last week. You've been talking about your show. I've been talking about it on my show. But that became official on Tuesday, pardon me. Jrue Holiday traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. The Pels got 3 number 1 picks, 2 pick swaps, George Hill, Eric Bledsoe. Griff turned that into sending George Hill to Denver. To George Hill to Denver. And also they got a first-round pick, as well as that first-round pick was R.J. Hampton. That was the 24th pick in this year's draft that they got through from Milwaukee. Okay. In addition to that, they get 2 second-round picks, future second-round picks, Darius Miller, and they to make this deal work. They also again, as part of the trade, the Pelicans were able to get Steven Adams, the center from Oklahoma City. As part of that deal, Hill goes to Oklahoma City, right? Josh Gray, Kenrich Williams, Zylan Cheatham all go to Oklahoma City in a sign and trade deal to get that done. Now, that means Steven Adams comes to New Orleans. an exorbitant $27 million contract. Plus, there was a trade kicker in there that when he got traded, the Oklahoma City Thunder was supposed to pay this money. The Pelicans held off. They ended up paying the trade kicker, which is going to mean he's going to count about a little bit over $30 million against the cap this year. You say to yourself, man, you're going to do that for 1 year for a guy? No. He signs a 2-year extension now for $35 million, which keeps him in a Pelicans uniform for 3 years. So complicated. Jrue Holiday ends up in Milwaukee. Bledsoe, Hill come to New Orleans. Hill moves on to Oklahoma City, and of course, in that roundabout deal, Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe are the final pieces here in New Orleans. Let's take Steven Adams first. Your thoughts on that deal?
We'll start with the deal itself in terms of giving the money as something of that nature as well. Look, what you're getting with that guy is, you're seeing it on social media and how people love his attitudes. A team guy, he brings toughness, he brings physicality. When people already like Josh Hart, who's a member of the Pelicans, say, we got the strongest bigs in the NBA. That's something that, again, I'm thinking Lakers, I'm thinking of some of the big teams that you have to play. The Pelicans lacked size. Pelicans lacked some toughness. The Pelicans lacked some. Look, I love Derek Favors, who went back to Utah, and I think he'd be happy there. But I think when I think of Steven Adams, I think of somebody that's going to knock down a guard when he's driving down the lane, going to grab a rebound, going to be able to help you score, clear that space, be that big, imposing presence that I think is going to help Zion, because he's not very tall. But you add those physicalities in there, I like it. But, man, again, you're starting to see what they're trying to do here. Stan Van Gundy comes to the team with a certain approach. No nonsense. Everybody's treated the same. You'll get called out. We're going to play defense. You're going to learn the game. That's that kind of guy. When you played OKC last year, you knew what you were going to be in for. It's like playground ball. I mean, they were tough. No one expected them to be as high as they were, and they were tough out. Part of that's Chris Paul. Part of that's the DNA of that team. They were left for dead, and they didn't play that way. So I love bringing that part of the DNA in. We talked a little bit about Brandon Ingram. It's a guy that can create your shot. So you have a lot of different areas and aspects in it. So I like it. I mean, to me, having Steven Adams in here is, I think, can help young players, even like Jackson Hayes, how to be more imposing with your size.
Look, I think he checks all the boxes. Only thing he doesn't do is shoot well. But he's a defensive center. His picks are phenomenal. Brandon Ingram will love his picks, okay? You look at him on the boards, he can rebound. Not the greatest shot blocker in the world, but he's a big guy. He'll block shots. And now, all of a sudden, you're looking at a very physical front court now with him and Zion. Some are worried about the spacing within the lane. I'm not worried about that at this point, because Zion is a different type of player, and it'll be interesting how that kind of plays out. But I'm all for this deal. I thought the $27 million for 1 year was a little bit much, but once you re-signed him to 2 more years, it made it palatable.
And it goes back to what the Saints sort of do with their players too, but it also shows a little respect.
Yes.
It shows happiness, right? I'm going to make you happy. Hey, we got you. Take care of it. Know you move into a new place. You can kind of be up and down. It's easier to go to your family and be like, hey, they added another year. They're giving me my money. So, again, that makes people happy and ready to go. And look, we haven't even got to Kyrie Lewis. A player like that who likes to drive down the lane, I'm thinking alley-oops, pick and rolls. I think this team's going to be more like that. I love the pace and the run and gun and all that stuff. It's sexy, it's fine. But you have to think of Zion.
Yes.
And is that the type of game that you sort of need? And all I know is this: Murray and Joker for Denver made a nice run last year. The Heat did as well, with a hybrid half-court pick-and-roll type. When the bleep was hitting the fan and they were pushed either by the Rockets or pushed by the Nuggets, what did LeBron and AD do? They ran pick-and-rolls.
Of course.
They literally ran the most basic basketball play. From the right wing, the left wing, LeBron would sit there, AD would set the pick, and he would throw it right back to him. So having a tall, big, physical, athletic presence is going to help. And again, it's Stan Van's job to create the spacing, and you can find the spacing when you're a little bit more basketball IQ and you know where to go.
Yep, I agree with you. The other part of that deal, ultimately, that stayed with the Pelicans is Eric Bledsoe. Talk about it.
I think, again, another player with a couple of years on his contract that isn't cheap. But I think a couple years ago, he was one of the top guards. He was one of those guards that you looked in the NBA and said, whether it's scoring, toughness, defensive-minded, things of that nature. And I think he may benefit from a nice little change of scenery there as well. It's been a couple of years since he sort of been that type of player. And it's almost where, okay, with Jrue, you do lose that veteran presence, that leadership, that ability to understand and know the league. So your backcourt got young real quick, right? When you lose that. So you do bring in a guy, though, that is a veteran, probably hungry, wants to be in a position to try to win, and go to the playoffs. So I like that a little bit. Plus, look, I think he's going to have an opportunity to be an important piece.
Yes.
And I think guys like him want to be able to have the ball in their hands, want to be able to, hold the finger up when they shoot a three and do it. So it's an interesting mix, I think.
Right. To your point, $16 million this year, $18 million next year, $19 million the following year, but there's only $3 million of that guaranteed on that contract for Eric Bledsoe. So all of a sudden now you've got your team coming together. In addition to that, the Pelicans have 26 picks over the next 8 years, including 11 first-rounders and 4 pick swaps. So Griff ends up getting the deal with Jrue Holiday done. He takes that 24th pick, as we talked about, which they got through Indiana, from Milwaukee, and picks R.J. Hampton, who might end up being a pretty good player before it's all said and done, send him to Denver, and of course that sets this thing in motion to be able to set up to be able to get Steven Adams from Oklahoma City. I thought it was a masterful way that Griff kind of traversed this thing to get it done. A lot of us were going scratching our heads, especially on draft night when you're seeing all these guards being picked by the team only to be moved elsewhere. So literally, again, you're talking about 13, 24, 39, 42, and 60, but the Pelicans only end up with 13. Everybody else is shipped away for future picks, or again, that helped in getting this Steven Adams deal done and the Jrue Holiday, and the Eric Bledsoe deal done. On top of that, you mentioned him, Kyra Lewis Jr. When you look at it, Naismith was sitting there from Vandy, best shooter in the draft. He was at the forward position, a position of need. But Griff said, and Langdon said all along, they had targeted this guy, Lewis, the whole time to be on this team. They tried to trade up. Nobody was listening. Nobody was answering the phone. He fell to 13. They got their guy.
I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm, right? And the reason, being honest, isn't because I knew that much about him in terms of that. This wasn't one of those drafts where I kept saying to me it was a targeted draft. Okay, I thought this draft was going to be one that if you like a certain player that you feel can accommodate your needs, can fit in your organization, target a player, I think that's what this draft was going to be. And it's example right there, where to other teams, that's not what you need. For the Pelicans, man, does he check some boxes. And the reason I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm is because in talking to people that either wrote some stories, Jared Weiss from The Athletic, I had him on the show, and by the time he was done, I was ready to buy a jersey. Because what is the number one thing this team really needed last year? Leadership. They need a floor general. It's why you and I on this show, I was like, I love CP3, but not for $40 million, and that's not where you are. But you needed somebody like that to hold players accountable, but command the court. There's so much in the game that is so important of a point guard. We've gotten spoiled in football watching Drew Brees be the conductor. There's the orchestra, the tempo, the pace, the check calls, picking up the defenses, eye on the clock, sees the play clock. I mean, he makes that look so easy, but it's not. You talked about spacing. You know one thing the point guard can really do? Dribble the ball specifically to an area on the court to create spacing, to start plays and get players to move that way. The three things that Jared said and several other people we had on the show talked about him. Leadership. He told the story of the guy having to ask the head coach at 16 years old in high school to please leave the keys to the gym because he had to go in and get work in. I don't know about you, I can't get my wife up at 7 o'clock to get to work. And here's a kid who's 16 doing that. Because of his age, he went to Alabama and actually was early in all that. So he's one of the earliest players in the NBA draft, Eric, and he's had experience on there. But leadership, desire, work ethic, 1-2. We just talked about Brandon Ingram, a guy that does that. Zion's going to be a worker. He's always been that way. So you have a coach that's going to be demanding, that wants those things. But in Ball, in Ingram, in Zion, you have guys that want to get better.
Yes.
Well, here's a guy who literally, that's all he knows. So again, I'm checking boxes here. What's the number one thing that would drive you nuts with Lonzo Ball? Drive the lane, please.
Right.
Lay it in. To my knowledge, a dunk in the lay-in is probably the easiest ways to score instead of selling for jump shots when they're not there. This guy loves to drive the lane.
Right.
So he's used to being amongst the trees, understanding those things, the finesse of either alley-oop, no-look pass, and again, you're thinking of a Stan Van Gundy team. Think of Jameer Nelson. He increased his play and became even better under Stan Van Gundy. He drive and kick, drive and alley-oop. I love that. Don't turn the ball over. Be that guy. If that guy can do this, that, you see, I had to temper my enthusiasm. I just think he checks a lot of boxes, and I think Pels fans are really going to like it because this guy, I'm not saying Ja Morant, but what I liked about Ja Morant, why he was so good, is from the get-go, when he stepped on the court for Memphis, it's his team.
Right.
He's running it. And I'm not saying like it's his team, meaning I need to be the face of stuff, but I'm talking about once the ball is going, I'm going to figure out where to go. And
he's the quarterback.
That's what I'm getting at. Right. So this team needs that. I'm not saying that Lonzo wasn't that, but when you hear them talk after the draft, and I'm talking about Van Gundy, and I'm talking about Trajan Langdon, and David Griffin, they really like him.
Right. Griff was magnificent. Okay, he takes the bottom end of the roster and flips that into 2 starters. Okay, basically, Darius Miller gone. You look at Josh Gray, Kenrich Williams, Zylan Cheatham, all gone in this deal. Players that signed elsewhere. Favors, as we mentioned, re-signed with Utah. Gio Okafor has signed with Detroit. Each one more has signed with the Suns. So a different team, a different dynamic here when you see this team that's going to start on December the 22nd. By the way, December the 1st is when they start training camp in the NBA. So now all of a sudden, you look at a lot of the players that were at the bottom end of the roster. You turn those guys into a couple starters. You lose a franchise player in Jrue Holiday, but you get a little bit more inside with a Steven Adams and a guy that is comparable. He's not Jrue Holiday, but he's comparable to Jrue Holiday in Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, and look, and you mentioned the other aspect of it in terms of the draft picks. This wasn't a deep draft. It may be deeper in years to come. Obviously, when there's no COVID and there's things of that nature, I mean, that's the hope that you do get. And look, I get it. I saw it on social media and got the phone calls too. My son might be in high school by the time these picks become something. But think of this. What you're doing is trying to change the culture. And what you've done, Eric, is you've been able to, in a league where players talk, and I mean, it's been admitted. They talk at games. They talk, I mean, they're openly saying, come play here. What have you done in a year and a half? You've changed the culture.
Yes.
Right? This is now a place where Stan Van Gundy thinks, I need to come coach here. You have a player that has shown, you know what, if I work hard and I turn myself into an all-star, they're going to pay me.
Right.
That's a good thing. You have a player that could help you win in Zion. I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Right? Let's see. And more importantly, there's a plan. There's a plan. I'm not saying it's going to work. It never works. Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis strike out sometimes. But they have a plan. You understand the basic premise of what they're trying to do. And that is so much better than a lot of different places where you're band-aiding and you're sticking this, because it's an understanding of the market, right? You're not going to go high draft. You're not going to go 5 free agent signing type things. With those draft picks, what you can do is you can now pick and choose. If you use them, I need a defender. Right. I need a wing. I need a shooting guard. I need that point guard backup guy. Or you can do what they've done, parlay them into getting a player by combining those players.
I said the same thing on the radio show. I did a monologue on David Griffin, and I talked about, again, the difference between a Dell Demps and a David Griffin. Dell Demps always seemed to be throwing something against the board, trying to be able to. He seemed like he was always running for the bill collector, right? I need this. I need this player. Let me grab this.
That's a good
I'll give you whatever. Okay, all my draft choices. No, it's been a completely different scenario with Griffin. just like Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis, there is a plan in place with the New Orleans Saints. You know what they're doing year to year. They've got the salary cap set up that they understand this person may leave us here. This is what we have to do to be able to change contracts, to be able to create more salary cap room. This is what I'm looking for in the draft. We have a vision for a player. You have confidence in that. With these 26 picks over the next 8 years, 11 of those first-round picks, 4 pick swaps, those are assets. It gives them the ability now to be able to get involved in a player that may be a veteran player that wants to move on, okay, that is at the trading deadline where a team is trying to divest themselves, that they can get a player that can maybe be a piece to a championship. They've set themselves up with great flexibility to be able to have sustained success. But with that said, Gus, as we get ready to wind this down about the Pelicans, I think they need to be a playoff team this year. You know, with all the moves and all the future assets and everything else is one thing. But in the end, I know the Western Conference is tough, and it's gotten even tougher in this offseason. But you have to be able to prove to the fan base, yes, everything looks good on paper, and we're trying to achieve something long term, but you got to be able to strike that iron. It can't fall apart like you did in the bubble last year. This has to be a playoff team this season.
You got to have some talent.
Right.
I mean, you got to have some talent. The one thing that we've seen in the NFL, though, and it's to your point, and we can get into when we get to the black and gold, Sean Payton and the Saints have perfected the next man up mentality. There's reasons. I've been talking about it on the show, and I have a checklist as to how they've gone about doing that. But to do that, there's a few things you have to do, and it starts with structure, and it starts with what you want to do. And when you hear Sean Payton and Drew Brees all the time talk about the fine line between winning and losing, because there's talent on both sides, it's penalties, making the right play. I mean, Leonard Fournette earlier this week on Monday Night Football drops third down passes. Tom Brady doesn't get the right read. It's the picks. So that's the difference between winning and losing. In the NBA, making the right call, knowing when to go to the bench, getting the trust of the players, having those players, more importantly, understand the game. If you can have a team that has basketball IQ, which is something this team that you're going to be in the game. Play some defense. You're going to be in the game. Know who your scorers are. Stan Van Gundy, day one in his opening press conference when he met the media said, we're going to have 3 or 4 people that are going to shoot the basketball, and that's it. Everyone else, your job's to help them score or get the rebound or play defense. So he's going to define roles. And I think that's already ahead of the game when you play teams where you're just out there playing pickup basketball. The Pelicans and Hornets over the last several years have lost games because they haven't been able to do the little things.
And look, I'll say one more thing as we wrap this up. The biggest difference between the Pelicans and the Saints, and this goes back to even when the Hornets were here, when it was the Hornets, again, when you look at the franchise now, since Sean Payton has come on board, accountability. Every individual is accountable for everything that goes on in that locker room and on the field. Accountability is what's going to be the difference for this Pelican team. And it looks like, again, they've got somebody at the top who is demanding accountability, and that goes a long way in winning championships.
It's not good enough anymore.
No doubt. No doubt. All right, we take a break. We come back. We're going to talk New Orleans Saints, get into LSU and Tulane also. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Gus Kattengell is my guest from 100.3. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Gus Kattengell, ESPN 100.3, and the voice of Tulane women's basketball is our guest tonight. All right, here we go. Saints, 8-2, 7 in a row, 25-9 winners over the Falcons. Before we get into what happened, can I just say, Breeze is one tough sucker. I mean, Gus.
Yeah.
You give me one broken rib, I'm in bed whining like a baby.
Yes.
11 broken ribs, a collapsed lung. This guy continued to play, okay, until he couldn't breathe anymore. He's on IR now for 3 weeks. They were saying 2 to 3 weeks. I'm thinking it's more like 4 to 5, maybe 6. You want him to heal up and be ready for the playoffs. Your thoughts on Breeze before we move on to what's going on right now?
I mean, it stinks again that for a second straight year he's missing a handful of games like he is. Especially when you just start. I think it's the overwhelming theme this year with the Saints. We have yet to really see this team fully healthy, fully operational. The defense is finally getting going. But even the offensive line, Latavius Murray early in the week even touched on it. We haven't had a game where we've had the starting 5 that you wanted. Ruiz was injured before the season started. He struggled a little bit. You lose Andres Pete to a concussion. I mean, it's incredible what they've been able to do and win 7 straight. He's throwing a touchdown pass on this last, drive.
After dropping the ball.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that must feel like to extend the cartilage on the ribs.
Lean down, grab it, turn like that, the torque.
But you saw the body language. You knew it.
Right.
You knew, he looked like he was crying. You just saw the pain and anguish on it.
He was having trouble breathing.
And I also think it was what I was probably thinking. I know I'm not alone. Was that Kurt Warner? But was that the last hit, the last time you saw it? Don't think it wasn't running through his mind.
Sure.
Because you don't know the diagnosis at the end. What if they would have said rest of the regular season? Okay, well, what if the team's winning? I'm not saying that you wouldn't even consider, but what if you're not ready? And what if this team is there? I mean, do you risk the Foles situation, Brady situation that happened like that, with Bledsoe. So it stinks to see that happen, but man, I would be happy if I see him for Kansas City. I think that's my target. It's indoors.
Me too.
You can get 2 games before the playoffs, that in Carolina. I'm not even thinking about sending out there to Philly. Who knows where they're at that point, but it's outside, it's cold, if I see it for Kansas City, I'm high-fiving. That's great. Vikings, I'd be fine with that as well, So that's kind of where I'm hoping that I see him.
All right. Now, everybody knows my feeling about Taysom Hill, okay? I mean, again, first of all, I thought Jameis Winston would be the starter. And but, hey, you know what? I'm not listening because Peyton is a different guy, maybe since the suspension, right? He comes out and tells you what he's going to do. A lot of us, like myself, I don't believe it. I got to look for the code. I got to look in between the lines here. But he said it. He said Taysom's going to be our backup quarterback. They backed it up by giving him 2 years, $21 million. Sure, Winston was a late arrival. But yet, again, there was always, now we see it, clear as day, always a plan. Breeze goes down in the middle of a game. Winston comes in because, again, you could keep the existing plan in place, but we have a plan for a starting Taysom Hill, and they have that plan. Taysom runs the ball 10 times for 51 yards, 2 touchdowns, first player to do that in a Saints uniform since Archie Manning as a quarterback. 23 throws, 18 completions, 233 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but again, sacked 3 times. But he played well. Started off shaky, looked like the Taysom Hill we saw in preseason. And it was one of those things like, aha, but by the second half, got comfortable, and he looked like an NFL quarterback.
Got to see legs, right?
Yes, he did.
Kind of how you felt like it.
How did you feel going into it? Were you feeling the same way I did, or were you on the Taysom train? Where were you standing?
I could have understood it, obviously, that it was going to be Jameis Winston. But I did make the case on the air is that of the 2 quarterbacks, the one that knows the offense the most is Taysom Hill. That's not even a question. True. And he's in, I don't know how many position group meetings. He's probably aware of everything that the team does when you think about it. And I also, you've brought it up, Sean Payton hides in plain sight. He tells you, right? Go back to earlier this year, one of the toughest stretches. when he fumbles against Green Bay. Right after that game, Sean Payton says, I trust him. I have faith in him. He's won us big games before. I talked about it on the air that it was almost a sense of unrealistic expectation level of success that he had. Kamara, Breeze, Thomas don't have that level of success to an extent in terms of the amount of plays he comes in. It's 5 to 7, but every play is either a first down, a 20-yard gain, a blocked punt, a change of game momentum play or something. That's what we had gotten used to. That's unrealistic for it to happen all the time. And it's remarkable when you think at the beginning of the season, fans were calling for no more Taysom Hill, right? To the point where I had it as a question of the day. When is the right time for Taysom Hill, and what is the right play? Because no matter what Saints fan you talk to or media member, it was always the wrong time, and it was always the wrong play. But they gave him $21 million because, again, Sean Payton believed in him, period. That's the reality of it. So I think when you look at that game plan, it was perfect. 25 carries of the two running backs, 12 and 13 between Murray and Kamara.
Yes.
He only ran 10 times, and who would have thought that Michael Thomas would have had 9 receptions, 12 targets. He was a part of the game. Absolutely. It was his biggest game of the year so far. So you see the arm, you see the ability to scramble and move. And there was one play that I know Deuce Wyndham, the Athletic, broke it down on social media. It was beautiful where he just sidestepped a little bit. Pressure, you have an unblocked Falcon coming to hit you. And he delivered a beautiful ball down the field for a big pass game. Jrue didn't have that arm athleticism anymore. And Jameis may be able to do that, but does he know that's where the ball needs to go? Right. So, look, again, at the end of the day, it was one of the takeaways that I had out of the game. Sean Payton just continues to prove to me to the point where I'm starting to put him in a different category. Right.
The fumbles are an issue. He's got to take care of the football. What we saw was, especially in the second half, him go through his progressions, which was good because he had been a guy one look and then tuck it and go. He, again, stayed in the pocket, didn't utilize his legs as much as maybe we thought he would. But with that said, I say it all the time, Gus. I've been saying it for decades. Film is the great equalizer. There's film on this guy now. Okay, defensive coordinators are going to pick him apart. What does he do well? What does he not do well? And they're going to try to take away the things that he does well and then try to see, again, how he's going to react. It is going to be at Denver. Atlanta gets a second shot at him. At Philadelphia. And on this stretch, we'll find out what type of quarterback Taysom Hill is. Always look good in the first because, again, you're coming out first time. Maybe Atlanta wasn't prepared for him. It was in the Saints' favor in this one. The next 3 games, the playing field will be a little bit even now in terms of preparation for what Taysom Hill does well. Yeah, it's remarkable, too, that Alvin Kamara didn't get a reception. Not a reception. So that's another element you can go to. And, you know, more importantly, I think he's going to get more comfortable. And the more that he gets reps at practice, the more he gets reps in the games, he's going to be more comfortable. We mentioned the sea legs, you know, of him getting in the flow. And I think the big difference as to why the Saints were successful with Teddy Bridgewater going undefeated and having a nice effort this past week, Eric, is a point I keep making on the show. They are ready to make that transition. I've called it complete from being a Drew Brees led and filled team to having multiple leaders on this team. You saw Alvin Kamara 2 weeks ago go pick up Chauncey Gardner-Johnson when he was hurt, pick him up and run him to the sideline, tell him get your butt in there because we need you to win the game. Alvin Kamara sitting next to Taysom Hill on the bench next to Drew Brees. It's a visual. To the rest of the team, that's our quarterback right now. And when you hear all the other players, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on Monday say, I wasn't surprised. I mean, y'all are in practice. You also see you have more players feeling like he's just a normal player. Like they expect him to do that. That's your job. Accountability. Go do it. Accountability. The big thing for this team and the reason why the turnaround is the play of the defense. And especially now what we saw, and this is Atlanta, and I understand, again, they have Atlanta's number, and we all love when Atlanta gets whipped by the New Orleans Saints, but not having Lattimore, it was probably the best coverage I've seen this secondary play in a long time. The 11 pass defense, the 2 interceptions, the sticky coverage, that led to what we saw up front with again, the defense getting 8 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 7 tackles for loss. It was truly a defensive effort on all 3 levels of the defense. The addition of Quan Alexander has really opened up to Mario Davis to be the playmaker that he was. He had a sack. You've got Hendrickson. Who would believe? Look, if you could have, anybody would have taken that bet in Vegas, he would be tied for the lead in sacks with 9.5 sacks at this point in the NFL season. And of course, Jordan came out with 3 sacks on Sunday as well. Defense coming together, much like they did when Breeze went down last year.
Yeah, and look, and you think that they've had injuries on that line still as well.
Lattimore didn't play this
and all
past
that.
weekend.
Yeah, look, I think it's the defensive line that we were hoping to see, right? And we thought that we could see. And look, you're just finally starting to see the fact, like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis in their WWE promo Sunday after the game, they said it. Who do you want? Pick your poison. And you brought up Quan Alexander quietly around the league, not on this team, but quietly around the league. That might be, again, another brilliant move.
I think it was.
Under the radar. I mean, what you gave up for him and what you're getting in return to where, as Chauncey Gardner-Johnson said, he's been an infusion of energy. Demario Davis, oh my gosh, are you fast? And adding speed, athleticism, energy to a group that, you know what, it's a nice shot in the middle of the season to have. Brilliant.
Right.
It's absolutely brilliant. And look, you got to imagine he's happy being back around these parts and understanding that. Somebody eager to prove themselves. I'm sure he wants another contract coming up and all of that. But that defense is playing the way we would want them to play.
It's expected to play.
Yeah,
they're swarming now. They weren't
Demario
swarming
Davis at the end of the game said he challenged Marcus Williams. And we've talked about this.
Right.
Marcus Williams has the ability.
Absolutely.
As a rookie, he was incredible.
Right.
He was in the right place at the right time. You never saw him really get beat. He was always at safety. So, again, I go back to my initial point where how this team is without Drew Brees.
Right.
You have 6, 7 leaders. You have a leader or 2 per position group.
Right.
You have accountability in the locker room. Sean just gives you the game plan with Dennis Allen and everybody else, and they're just out there executing, but they're understanding what they need to do, man. It's fun to see this defense start to get better. And look, Denver, they're struggling on offense. You're going to get the Falcons again. Let's see that chess match and adjustments. Philly, my goodness, they're ready to run once out. Kansas City will be an interesting game. It'll be an interesting game because you have a ton of weapons on that one. So.
Right. Well, again, you've got all your weapons on offense now with the exception of Drew Brees. We'll see how Taysom Hill plays out through the rest of the scenario. Some are thinking that maybe Jameis Winston has a chance to be able to play. We'll see how that kind of plays out down the line. Defensively, you're coming together. And we already know that, again, with or without Harris, it's one of the best, if not the best special teams in all the NFL.
Yeah.
So, again, you can count on special teams every single week, what they've been able to do, especially since a few years ago, Peyton put an emphasis on special teams. And you saw him going out and getting guys specifically tailored for special teams, and it's paid dividends. Let's shift gears. Let's get to the LSU Tigers. They're now 3-3. They beat Arkansas 27-24. Look, it wasn't pretty, okay? I mean, but again, when you look at it, LSU dominates time of possession, 41 minutes and 43 seconds to 18 minutes and 17 seconds. And you would think, man, you hear that, man, LSU blew them out. No. Again, once again, the leaky secondary, the problems with on the defense have reared its ugly head. I give a lot of credit to TJ Finley to be able to keep his composure down the line, drive them down for the winning score. Yeah. But again, it still takes a backup, Jay Ward, to make a big play on 3rd down in the last drive, and they have to block that kick to preserve the victory. This is not the same LSU team as last year, not even close. But what you're hoping for, the big buzzword, accountability, is accountability within that program. And quite frankly, they have not had it this year. They're going into A&M now. It's going to be interesting to see again how that kind of plays out. Your thoughts on LSU, where they are?
I think where they are is interesting from this aspect of it, that there's a reason Terrace Marshall had to hold a players-only meeting heading into this week. I think what else is interesting is when you speak to former players, several go on my show and your show as well and all around the city, very vocal and adamant on how players need to grow up and take accountability of it. Yes. Look, I thought it was one of my theories. Again, I'm just one of those guys that loves to observe body language, what people say and how you see it.
True.
When you lose 19 of 22 starters, it's going to affect you.
Yes.
And I know people can come at me and say, well, Bama can do. Again, like Sean Payton, the Saints are where they are in 2020 because he started in 2006. Right. All right? Alabama is a self-feeding machine that has started several years ago.
Right.
Now, most normal programs are cyclical, right? LSU, this was a cyclical situation. You built enough. You needed that one missing piece. You went and found Joe Burrow to get yourself a shot. You don't have Joe Burrow. They're not doing what they're doing last year.
Right.
He was that one missing piece. They had talent, but you needed that guy. Most schools are sort of like that. Ohio State's very rare. Clemson, I guess you can sort of start saying like Bama, where they can kind of self-feed themselves. But the problem is you have a team full of players that haven't taken their lumps. You know why you saw people cry at Tuscaloosa last year? Because they're tired of getting their butts handed to them. They got tired of losing close games. They got tired of coming close. They had players that had taken their lumps. So for them, you had leaders that were forged under fire. Here you got guys that are coming in with the nice pretty threads and uniforms. They're doing their videos. They haven't done anything.
Right.
They haven't played anybody. They haven't done anything, right? So how do you know they can play? They just because you have the helmet and the colors. And I think it was a brutal wake-up call and an awakening. You also have a bunch of players on the defensive side that maybe were recruited to play a certain kind of defense that's now a different kind of defense. So you have to have buy-in. You have to have people that want to play for you and all of that. So, again, when I looked at that game last week against Arkansas, it's a pivotal game for both schools, right? I do Arkansas game day.
You do Arkansas game day, right? So you've seen a lot of Arkansas.
Absolutely, they don't have the same level of talent as LSU, right? And again, the problem with the Tigers is they don't have the lumps.
Right.
For those, those are very talented players.
Yes.
But you have to learn.
Right.
And what part of the learning process is, for an opposing school or teams that you're playing sometimes, it means something to them. Like the boot over there, honestly, how many people around here care about the boot?
Right. Nobody.
To them, it's massive.
Right.
Like the two guys do to show it, meaning like they don't like the empty square that's inside the football facility where the boot goes.
Right.
Like it's a reminder to them. It's important to them.
Right.
So you better be ready to come play. You got a school and a team that's trying to show they're better than what they are, that they don't want to be the bottom of the barrel. So you got to show that you are going to consistently be that second team in the West year in and year out that's going to challenge Bama. That's what you need to do, and that's what you need to have the right mindset to do. Let's see what happens. I thought that game was pivotal, though, to show me that you can win an ugly game.
They needed to win.
And you needed to, I think you needed to get in a brawl. You need to get in a brawl. Joe Burrow won the team over getting in a fight at practice.
No doubt. Look, think about it. Hadn't played since Halloween. You needed to get a game in. You needed to get a win. It was desperate. For the Tulane Green Wave, it's a little bit different. 5-5 now, 2-5 within the conference, and when you look back on the season that could have been, that's the thing that's going to ache Tulane fans and everyone that's in that Tulane facility. 30-24 losers to Tulsa in overtime. They played well enough to win. They had this game in hand. They get a third-string quarterback, comes in the last 9 minutes and 17 seconds of the game, scores 21 points on Tulane. This game goes into overtime, and I'm not putting this on Michael Pratt. Defense should have stopped Tulsa, but Michael Pratt, his second, the second time this year, he's thrown an interception in overtime against a ranked team. The previous one was SMU, and of course, the rest is history. Tulane goes down to Tulsa on a game they had in the bag. Yeah. And look, I keep saying that a little engine could, because they are the little engine that could. They just have not been able to get over that hump. When you think back to this season and the Navy game and the SMU game and this Tulsa game, what could have been for this program?
So, learning to be a consistent winning program, you have to go through a handful of steps. And first, obviously, is changing the culture. Willie Fritz has done that. Then you got to get better players. You have to recruit some. You have to go get some from JUCO. I think the talent level since he's been here has improved. I don't think you can argue that.
I would agree.
I mean, the eyeball test tells you, right? You're not nearly as small. You're not as athletic. As a matter of fact, that's what was so striking against the Navy game and stuff. Like, look, Houston's still going to be a certain animal, but SMU, Navy, games that you tough Tulsa, you're equal, if not better, talent-wise. The difference is making the play. If I could narrow down what 2020 was for Tulane, is from coaches to players, they just self-inflicted, wounded themselves to death. They shouldn't have this many losses. They're a better football team, But Eric, if you want to be a winning team, you have to make the play.
That's right.
It's literally that simple. When you look at UCF and some of these other games, when the throw is a 4-yard throw that goes for 19 or 21, but you miss the tackle, that's on you.
Right.
When you can't get off the field against Tulsa with 2 fourth and super long conversions, that's on you. When you call a timeout before the Hail Mary to set up the play, and you have 4 defenders to their 2 wide receivers, but they get behind your 4 defenders, that's on you. I mean, there is no reason that third-string quarterback should look like Tua.
Right.
Because he did.
No, he did.
And he came running. But, again, that's a player infusing energy and refusing to not, let go of that moment. You got to want it.
Right.
But there's so many times, Eric, this season, whether it's on the sidelines or calling a game from the booth like we do on road trips now, it's bad positioning, bad angles that turn into key first downs of big plays. It's heartbreaking because that interception there at the end was a great play by a player who's going to play Sunday and go in the first round by Collins. But it's just understanding what they were trying to do. It's a perfect play. Will Hall called the right play.
Right.
He's wide open in the end zone. If Pratt lost the ball, it's a touchdown wide open. You had 2 linebackers come in. Hutterson decided, I'm going to pick up the NFL guy that's coming, but he stops, kind of hides a bit, reads the quarterback's eyes. Pratt is looking and waiting for the running back. He throws a flat ball. If he throws out a loft to that ball or towards the pylon, it is an easy touchdown. And then let's see if you stop it. But, again, you rush 3 on the Hail Mary on a young quarterback with 37 yards to get to the end zone, make him throw it sooner. I just, there's so many instances that you can look at these games and go, you could have altered the outcome on your own. And I think that's the only way I'm going to be able to sleep this offseason for next year is if I'm Willie Fritz, I have to tell my staff, I have to tell my players, we self-inflicted ourselves the record that we are right now. And that's different. And I know it's tough for Tulane fans to hear, but to me, I think that's different than years past where you simply didn't have the talent. You shouldn't have lost to Navy. You should have beat SMU. I actually think Tulsa is another win too. I mean, you
should have beat Tulsa. You had Tulsa.
You gave up some wins. This
You did. You gave up 3 wins.
It's tough to say that, but you gave up wins this year.
I get that. You're sitting on 8 wins right now. Okay, and people are going bananas. Okay, if you're Tulane with 8 wins.
Look, you were up on Houston.
I
mean, you had 2 defensive. You have to play better on offense. You can't go into a shell and then punt the ball away 3 straight times. And you can tell me without a better offense, I'm like, that's fine. But you were spotted 14 points out of defense.
We got about a minute left. You've been on that sideline for years. Can you continue to preach patience to Tulane fans? It's a hard sell.
It is a hard sell, and that's why, I'm saying, though, I think you have to look at it from a perspective of this, what I just said. It's not a talent issue now, right now. That I know that's hard to hear. 2, you have a quarterback. So now recruiting's got to be a little bit different. Now I need to go get receivers. The drops. I mean, again, I can go on and on, self-inflicted. They've dropped passes. So now I need to go get, why? Because I've gotten receivers in the past that are blockers because I've run the football a lot. So I think the fact that you have a quarterback, I think the fact that you do have better talent all the way around, that's better than where you were 3-5 years ago. You just have to make plays.
Gus Kattengell, always a pleasure. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, man.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Thank you for joining us and spending your Thanksgiving with us. Remember, again, this show can be seen every Thursday, 1 and 6 p.m. right here on WLAE-TV. 10 o'clock on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2. Also on Pelican Sports Television, Friday night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on WLAE. If you're up at 2 a.m., you can catch us on The Deuce on Saturday morning at 2 a.m. On WLAE-TV 2, and then back on Pelican Sports Television at 5 o'clock on Saturdays. And again, we thank Gus Kattengell for joining us on the program. You can also catch all the previous episodes of our program at the WLAE YouTube page and also at ericasher.com. You can catch me on the radio That is 106.1 FM, Nash Icon. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. The podcast is now on all of your top podcast platforms. You can check it out there as well. Also, want to thank Gus Kattengell for joining us on Thanksgiving. Also, the WLAE production staff working hard. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy Fairley, Tommy O'Connor, and the best director in the business, William Hill. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. My name is Eric Asher. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We'll catch you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.